Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. You may have noticed if you're a regular here that I did change my channel name. It used to be Belle's Library. I've now rebranded, I guess, to My Granny Era. The reason why I did that is because I just felt like the Belle's Library thing was a little too, I don't know, like Disney princess. That is the name of my literature blog, and I got that name because I had taken this picture of my daughter dressed as Belle from Beauty and the Beast years ago, sitting by a tree reading, and I thought that would be the perfect picture to go on my new literature blog that I was making at the time, and so I named it Belle's Library, and it's still named that. I probably won't change that, but I did feel like it probably wasn't fitting this channel and who I am now, and I was being called Belle and my name's Sarah, so I decided to go ahead and change it. I was looking for a name, and I went onto Facebook, and one of my friends had posted a picture of herself in a flower printed dress and a little cardigan, and she said, "I'm in my granny era," and I thought that's perfect because I am a grandmother, so I will always and forever be in my granny era, so the name will fit from here going forward, right? But also my kids always tease me that I've kind of always been sort of a grandma, just kind of do, you know, the slow living things that people associate with grandmas, like sitting around and reading and doing crafts and keeping knickknacks all over your house and baking cookies and, you know, the way I dress and just different things that my kids have always thought I was really old-fashioned and kind of a granny. So I don't know, right? That's the stigma, and it's okay if you're a granny and you don't do that stuff, it's fine. And if you do that stuff and you're not a granny, that's fine too. But it was just kind of a silly joke with my kids and stuff. And while I am a grandmother, sometimes I don't want to admit that I am old enough to be one. You know, I'm almost 45, and so I guess I just need to accept that. But my little grandsons are so precious to me. They are both under 2 years old. They're just in such fun stages, super cute little guys. Maybe I'll have them on the channel one of these days. But anyway, we decided to rebrand and call it My Granny Era. And I'm just, you know, here doing these granny-ish things. So I want to tell you guys about that. But the other thing, I wanted to make this video to show you guys a book haul that I had these last couple of days, yesterday and the day before. My daughter and I went down to Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is about an hour and a half straight south of us. It's right on the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. And we went down there just to spend a couple of days. We had a plan to go to England this week, actually, and just various things. We decided not to go. And so instead, we went down to Fort Smith, and she wanted to show me a bunch of things that she had seen. It has a lot of Civil War history and early American history. And so we had a good time. So I've made some video of that. I don't think it's super long. I haven't edited it yet. It's probably just a few minutes once I get it all edited down. But it's just little clips of what we did. I don't know. It might be 20 minutes. I have no idea. You'll find out. But I didn't know if you guys would want to see that more, if you wanted to see the book haul more. I feel like if you don't live in the US, you may want to see the footage of our trip more. And if you do live in the US, maybe you want to see the book haul more. So you guys can let me know in the comments which one you liked more. But I'm going to put the book haul first, and then I'll put the trip. So if you're wanting to see the trip, skip the book haul. But you can let me know in the comments, or if you just loved it all. If you didn't like any of it, don't tell me. But let's get right into the book haul, because I got quite a few books. I was going to kind of break it down by shops, and I think I'm just going to go through the list because I got a lot of books, and I might not remember everywhere we went, and you don't know these places anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The last place we went, though, is where I am going to start, and that was Barnes & Noble. Yesterday on our way home, we stopped in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and went to the Barnes & Noble there. I hadn't been there for a long time, and to that one anyway. And so I wanted to see if it differed from the one that is closer to me. And the only real difference was it still had like the older Barnes & Noble, like the writing, the old font in their on their windows and up above the doors. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like I hadn't seen that, you know, since the 90s. So that was fun. But other than that, it was just like the store that is closer to me that I always go to. So anyway, I picked up 3 books there that I probably wouldn't have normally picked up had I not seen these either on Goodreads or here on BookTube, and they just sounded interesting to me, and I am kind of trying to branch out a little bit. Okay, first book I picked up is called Black Rabbit Hall. This is by Eve Chase. I've never read her before. I had a couple other of her books on my Goodreads wish list, but when I came across this book, the other ones weren't there, but this one was there, and the front cover says, "For fans of Kate Morton and Daphne du Maurier." All right, so Kate Morton is my 100% favorite author in the 21st century, and Daphne du Maurier is probably in the top 3 or two of my top favorite authors of the 20th century. So I was like, I better grab this book. I will probably like it. It's a modern Gothic story. So I decided to pick this up. I read some last night. I'm currently almost 140 pages into it. I am really enjoying the story. It's that whole old house, young girl, old lady, secret, love interest, but not too romantic. Like, it's the perfect. It's so far, I'm loving it. It's a really great story. I had a little concern for a little bit that it was going to go sort of Flowers in the Attic on me, but it doesn't look like it's going that direction, so I'm glad for that. I think I'm going to enjoy this book. I will keep you posted. Something else I got from Barnes & Noble is this book called The Lost Van Gogh by Jonathan Santlofer. This is supposed to be a thriller, an art history mystery. I don't know why I like this specific like sub genre of thrillers as opposed to any other thrillers or mysteries. For some reason, I just have a thing about art history mysteries. I love the Da Vinci Code. I know that's like a Garbagas book, right? But I just love that kind of a story. But I don't read thrillers really in general, ever. But for some reason, the ones that have to do with art history just really get me. Okay, so I think I'm going to enjoy The Lost Van Gogh. And then I got this book called Small Favors by Erin Craig. This one was a pretty popular book on BookTube a couple of years ago. It looks like it's a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, basically. These people live in a village and they have to give things to the monsters in the woods in exchange for safety, I think. I don't know, something that's kind of general. But one, yes, I totally picked it up for the cover because it's beautiful. Two, I picked it up because it's a YA thriller / fantasy, which is so not what I read at all. And like I said, I'm trying to branch out a little bit. But it did sound interesting to me, and so I'm going to check that out. All right, and then the last thing I got at Barnes & Noble were these little page flags. This is from the company called Girl of All Work. Let's see if I can get that on there. There. I don't think there's glare there. Pretty close. The company is called Girl of All Work, and they're little page flags. This one has Poe, Emily Dickinson, Oscar Wilde, and Jane Austen. And I have several others. I've got the Alice in Wonderland set, Wizard of Oz set, Pride and Prejudice set, and one other Jane Austen set. Anyway, so when I saw these, I had to pick them up. I haven't seen them in the shops for several years, so I don't know if they just happened to grab one out of the back and set it out there or what, but I was really excited and snatched it up. So that was my Barnes & Noble haul. All right, and then Lynzie and I went to an antique shop and saw all kinds of really cute things. But I was looking for books. So I did end up getting a set of candles that I'm gonna use at Thanksgiving that are really cute, like from the 1950s. Maybe I'll show those later, closer to Thanksgiving time, but I did get a stack of books also. So one I got was this. It's Idylls of the King, Tennyson, and it is heavily annotated. This book was published in the 1880s, and the writing in the annotations looks pretty old-fashioned-y. So that'll be fun to go through. And then there was a little forgotten bookmark inside, which I love to find things in books that people leave behind. It looks like a Catholic person. It says, Jesus, Mary, I love you, save souls. And that town had a really neat Catholic church there, and it looked like a pretty heavy Catholic presence in town. I'm not sure, but just kind of got that feeling. So maybe this book had been in the area for quite a long time. But anyway, I thought that was a really pretty version of that. Then I got Plutarch Lives. And Plutarch wrote in the, first century? And he just wrote different stories about different heroes from his time or from his own mythology, right? Or history. He writes about Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Antony, and Artaxerxes, Brutus. But then he goes back earlier and he's writing about Theseus and Romulus and Lycurgus and Pericles and, just different people. And he's telling their stories. So for him, this is probably more history than mythology, but for me, this is mythology. And so anyway, that's a really beautiful copy. And I think those books are really important to have, even if you don't believe that as an actual history or, a religion or whatever it is, whatever direction the writer is going. Knowing these ancient stories really helps us to understand so much of our literature that has been written since, right? And so I always like to kind of brush up now and then. And then I got this book of poems by Whittier. And I have made that commitment, right? I talked about it the other day when I was talking about Anne's poetry pop-up, that I would make a commitment to read more poetry. And so I did grab this. It's got these pretty, can you kind of see the shiny gilded edges? So this made a really nice gift for somebody once upon a time, probably this person whose name is written in the front. And it looks like it says Billy Findley of Pogburn, Arkansas. I'm not sure, but this book was published in 1885, so it's a nice old copy, and I've already put my receipt in a place here with a poem that I think if I do end up doing the poetry pop-up, I will probably read this poem because it fits in well with some of the other things that I'm reading. So grabbed that from my collection. So when we did go and tour the fort at Fort Smith, the Fort Smith area is kind of towards the end of the Trail of Tears. Many of the families that were pushed out of the places that they were living and forced into Oklahoma crossed into the area right there at Fort Smith. There's actually a little sort of circle-ish area of forts around the area that were supposed to provide for the needs of these Native American families that were moved into the area. And so it was a really big theme there. And so one of the books I got was called Indian Givers: How Native Americans Transformed the World by Jack Weatherford. And so it's actually talking about how their cultural, social, political practices of the Native Americans transformed the way of life, the way that life is lived throughout the world. That's an interesting concept. I don't even know what that means or where that's going to go. So I think that will be an interesting read. I actually did want to find something specifically on the Trail of Tears and did not find something that I thought that I would want to read. So if you have any recommendations on the forced removal of those people into, these new areas of the nation, be sure and let me know. All right, and then the next one I picked up was called African American Women of the Old West. I don't know, I'm on an African American women kick. Whether it is authors or reading about them, they're on my mind. But this book talks about 10 African American women that have been preserved in history and the things that they did during the time of the Old West, after the Civil War, I'm assuming. And that will be fun to read these stories, I think. There's probably some heartbreaking stuff in there as well. So maybe not completely fun. You know what I mean? Just worth it, right? A worthwhile experience. All right. And then the majority of the rest of these books I got at one shop called Snooper's Barn. It's not in a barn. It's actually in kind of a old, like a 19th century building downtown that has super high ceilings and it's kind of like narrow but long back into, the back of the building. It was just really cool. It was a cool shop. The books in that shop were from every generation back for like a couple hundred years. She had so much stuff in there that was just old. A lot of old school books and old like just manuals and things. But then she had like a bunch of things that I remember seeing on my grandma's bookshelves, like stuff that was from, the book clubs of the 50s and 60s, with their dust jackets and everything on still. It was a fun shop. There's all kinds of stuff in there that I was feeling nostalgic about. All right, first book I got there was called The Beetle by Richard Marsh. Somebody on here has recommended this. I didn't necessarily have it on a list of books I was looking for, but when I saw it, I remembered someone else had mentioned it. Read the back, figured, okay, I might give it a try. So The Beetle, which was published in 1897, tells the story of a fantastical creature. It's not a god, it's not a man, but it has supernatural and hypnotic powers. It stalks a British policeman throughout London for retribution because of the defilement of an Egyptian tomb. And it looks like there's going to be a little commentary here on late Imperial Britain. So, we'll see. When I think of the Beetle, I just think of Kafka, right? The Metamorphosis. I don't think it's going that direction, though. Next up, this is Wolf Willow by Wallace Stegner. I picked this up for maybe three reasons. One, it was a Penguin classic, so, you know, it matches my other ones. Secondly, the cover photo looked sort of relaxing. And I had just actually found another book I'll talk about in a second that was kind of like the same sort of country atmosphere. And thirdly, I don't know, it just seemed like one of those books that was a good thing to read in between hard stuff, because it's basically the story of this guy living during pioneer times and maybe as the modern world sort of encroaches. And I think it'll be kind of nostalgic and just kind of a relaxing read. I grabbed it because I had just found A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr. That one was on my wish list, as someone on here had talked about it a while back, and I thought, that sounds relaxing. And so I went ahead and grabbed it because I was looking on eBay for these, and they were kind of spendy. I could really only find ones that were like in England, so the shipping was high, or the ones here just were high. This one I paid $6 for. And didn't have to pay shipping. And so I went ahead and grabbed it, but because I had that sort of Month in the Country on the mind, that's why I picked up that previous one. I found a copy of Laura Ingalls Wilder's The First 4 Years. I probably already have a couple of these already in paperback, but I'm trying to collect them in hardback with this particular edition. Like, it's a 1971, I think, is when this one was published. But these are the ones that I read as a little girl in the 80s in my school, you know, in the school library, or like if our teacher read them to us. It was from these, with these covers, these dust jackets. It just has that feel, and I don't know how to explain it to you, so you just had to be there, I guess. But anyway, I have one other, and I'm looking to get her whole set with in these editions, right? So yay, that was a good find for my collection. I picked up Green Dolphin Street by Elizabeth Goudge. So she's hit and miss for me, Elizabeth Goudge is. Some of her stuff I really love, some of it I'm kind of like, meh. But I like her enough to go ahead and collect her. And she just kind of has a special place in my heart because my daughter, my oldest daughter, the one that went with me, Lynzie, her favorite book is The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goudge, and I like that one too. So this was a nice, you know, hardback. Anyway, thought it'd be cool. The next book that I picked up, there was one of those really old ones they had there. This is called Hawaii and Its People by A. Grove Day. And this is a revised edition that was put out in 1960 after Hawaii became one of the United States. It is the history of Hawaii, as far as I understand. I hope that the revisions are just additions and not changes to the history. But I just won't go into all the reasons why I feel like it's important that we study the history of Hawaii. But I will say that what has sparked me to buy this book is last winter, I read Mark Twain's account of his visit in Hawaii. Was it in the 1880s? I'm not sure. I think so. And the things he was talking about in that book did not at all sound like the Hawaii that I think I know. I've never been to Hawaii. All I've learned about Hawaii is what I've learned in school. I've never really read anything on Hawaii or watched a documentary or anything. But he was talking all about, like, the king of Hawaii, and I was thinking, Hawaii had a king? Like, okay, that's just kind of a sign of how lame my education in American history has been. But the whole story, he wasn't trying to tell the story of Hawaii. He was just telling his own story, right, of his trip there. But everything in that story just was eye-opener to me about the way they were living. You know, with the way he, I can't stand Mark Twain, but, you know, the way that he, you know, how he was just being so just pompous and colonial or whatever. Anyway, I don't like his whole attitude about things, but his intention wasn't to tell the history of Hawaii, but reading it now, you know, 140-ish whatever years later, That's exactly what I took it as a history of Hawaii and a Hawaii that is no more. And so then, recent events with everything that went on there last year just puts a lot of questions into your mind. And so I picked up this Hawaii and Its People, and I wanted to read this history of Hawaii and learn about this culture that I never realized I didn't know about, right? Does that make sense? All right, so then this next book, The Book of Air and Shadows by Michael Gruber. This book I picked up because the back of it says it's like the Da Vinci Code. It's one of those thrillers that has to do with, this one is about a rare book rather than an art history mystery. This one looks like it's about a rare book. The last sentence of it says, "From the glaring violence of today into the dark shadows of truth and life surrounding the greatest writer the world has ever known." Is it going to be about Shakespeare? It's probably going to be about Shakespeare. And it's Shakespeare. I don't know that I'll get to this in Shakespeare, but it looks like a lot of this is epistolary too. So it should be interesting. It looks kind of like a little bit more of a literary read than some of the others that I chose. So I'm glad for that. Okay, the next up, I wanted to find some Daphne du Maurier's. I have a couple on my wish list. I'm really looking for The House on the Strand. I haven't read that in a long time and I want to read it again. Wasn't able to find it, but I did find Rule Britannia, and I've not read this yet. This story is supposed to be a futuristic story about England dropping out of the European Common Market, forming an alliance called US-UK with the United States. American Marines are landed in Cornwall to protect the English from invasion by a foreign power. But there is a woman named Madam, an ancient retired actress, her brood of adopted boys, and the Cornish locals she urges civil disobedience. It looks like the two sides square off, this alliance and the locals. At a Guy Fawkes Day celebration, Madam opens the hostilities with a fireworks display, which succinctly expresses her sentiments. One of the Americans is killed, and the Marines impose severe restrictions on the districts. When Madam retaliates with Operation Dungcart, there's a couple of plays on words here, right? She resembles nothing so much as a fly buzzing in the ear of the elephant until the elephant goes berserk. So Daphne du Maurier takes an intriguing premise, a minor conflict evolves into a major tragedy. So we'll see if that aged well. All right, last up, I got this stack of books of horrible, cringy reads. So I did Garb August last month with Criminali and a couple other hosts. I found it on his channel. And basically, Garb August is to read garbage, like just trashy books, right? And I decided to do my own little twist on it just because there's a lot of themes that I just don't handle very well. But I decided to find the cringiest things I could remember reading from childhood that I would never dream of reading now and probably would not let my children read either, and read those for Garb August. So this last August, I only read one. I read a Sweet Valley High book that was, extremely cringy. So I decided that because I don't make a habit of collecting books that I know I am definitely not going to read, I need to be looking throughout this year and come up with a little pile of obnoxious reads so I can be ready next August for Garb August. So I found such a pile. This woman was getting rid of these books 5 for $1. That's how bad they are. So I'll just go through them really quickly. This is actually the first Sweet Valley High. I'm actually probably going to look for the original one because I want to read it with the original cover. They've redone the covers so that Jessica and Elizabeth actually look like teenage girls and not like middle-aged cardigan-wearing grannies. I did talk about that in the wrap-up video that I did for August, and I showed that cover, if you guys remember that. They don't look like teenage girls, but they do now, right? They look like teenage girls who live on the beach, which is what they are. All right, and then I got this stack of silly books that I would have loved when I was like 9. I probably read all of these. This is called Why Me by Ellen Conford. Basically this girl has a big crush on this guy, but he has a crush on somebody else, and this girl won't leave him alone, and he wishes she would. Just ridiculous teenagey angst. This is Over the Moon Basically everybody in this girl's family dies, and so she's on a journey of self-discovery, and it's just super drama. 2 books from the Cheerleaders series. I loved these as a kid. I despise anything that has to do with that. Okay, so yeah, that's not going to be fun. This one is called Friendship Blues, and this is one of those weekly readers. So here in the US, I don't know if you guys did this anywhere else where you're at, but in the US in the 80s, we had the weekly reader program, and it was so long ago, it's hard for me to even remember what it was, but basically there was all these books. And as you read them, in our school anyway, after you read one and you wrote up this little book report, you got stickers on a chart. Once you completed the line of stickers on the chart, you got something cool like a certificate for ice cream or something from the treasure box or 15 minutes of free extra recess or something like that. And so this is one of those books from the weekly reader. Okay, last book. This is called All That Glitters. These 2 are teenage soap opera stars, even though they look like my parents did when I was about 10. Apparently, Kate and Mitch are teenage soap opera stars. Katie is sure that Mitch is hiding something about his past because he's 16, so he must have a really deep, extensive past. But she's in love with Mitch. Mitch thinks they're just friends. Katie's determined to change that. If only she can help Mitch work through his angsty teenagerhood, they just might be able to, you know, have a go. All right, so that wraps up my book haul. Those will be fun, entertaining, and obnoxious, all in their own turn. So here I'm going to put up the video that I made of our trip to Fort Smith. You guys can see all the cool stuff that we got to experience. Super fun. Today, Lynzie and I are visiting Fort Smith, Arkansas. This is on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border, and it's about an hour and a half or so south of where we live. So Lynzie planned this fun trip for us here to Fort Smith. I've never been here. She had been once before and just really enjoyed the history and thought I would too. So far we have visited the main museum building with a courthouse and a reenactment, a setting of the prison, some of the original jail cells, and now we're overlooking the river and getting ready to go down into an old train station, I believe. It's been really a fun day, and I'm thankful that she planned this for us. In the spring of 1821, Osage leader Bad Tempered Buffalo appeared across the Arkansas River with 400 warriors in war paint. He and 7 warriors crossed the river, requesting gunpowder and permission to hunt on Cherokee land. Acting Fort Commander Lieutenant Martin Scott refused both requests. The Osage left the fort, having received the answer they expected. In full view, the Osage cut trees, built rafts, and appeared ready to attack. Outnumbered 10 to 1, Lieutenant Scott ordered the fort's 2 cannons prepared for battle. After seeing this, the Osage left the area without incident. According to Osage oral tradition, Bad Tempered Buffalo's actions were a bluff intended to scare the nearby Cherokee, intimidate the temporary commander, and reaffirm the Osage presence. Request denied. We haven't been in Arkansas for very long, and I haven't been a student of American history for even as long as that. But it looks like what happened at the beginning of the Civil War is that the Arkansas State Militia raised the Confederate flag here and took control of Fort Smith in 1861. The Union troops who were here left the fort, and Arkansas militia stayed in control of the fort. After the Union victory at Gettysburg and Vicksburg in July 1863, and the Confederate defeat west of Fort Smith at Honey Springs, the Union forces then reclaimed the fort in September of 1863. So we're about ready to go and enter the officer's garden. This would have sat, well, the spot this is in anyway, sat right behind one of the 2 officers' quarters. So you can see these concrete slabs here, they have re-poured to give us an idea of where these were in relation to the rest of the fort. So you can see this is the building that is kind of the museum building. And then here between the 2, that rock pile was a cistern that served both officers' quarters with collected rainwater. It looks like there are some fruit trees here, and then this garden. How much of this, the trees and things are original? I don't think so. I think it was probably replanted to give us an idea of the beauty of things, and I am curious about where the produce of this garden goes, or is it just a flower garden? We will find out in just a minute. Maypop.
Yeah. Or purple passion flower.
Wow.
Yeah. Or wild apricot.
That is so crazy.
Right? Yeah. It's used as a flavoring agent.
Oh my gosh, he's just chilling. Yeah, he is. that that was fun for you to get a look at what it looks like in my area and some of the history here. Hope everybody's having a beautiful day and a great week ahead. I will be putting out my top 5 here in just a couple of days. I didn't do that last week just because I was gone. So we'll get caught up on that. And otherwise, I will see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.